There was a moment in the early 2000s when Dodge, they did something no one expected. While the rest of America was switching to SUVs and crossovers, they built a full-blown muscle wagon. It was long, low, wide, and loaded with a HEMI V8. It was called the Dodge Magnum.
Get ready for a whole new kind of Dodge. Introducing the all-new Magnum. First, you see stunning performance. Another look reveals surprising versatility.
And for a few short years, it reminded everyone that wagons didn't have to be boring. This is the story of how the Magnum came to life, roared through the streets, and then disappeared just as fast as it arrived. By the late 1980s, the last of the Chrysler rear-wheel drive sedans, the Dodge Diplomat and the Plymouth Grand Fury, were headed for retirement. Chrysler had fully embraced front-wheel drive, believing that it was the future. The company's famous K-Car platform, launched back in 1981, had kept the lights on, spawning everything from compact sedans to minivans. It wasn't glamorous, but it sold. So when the new generation of Chrysler full-sizes arrived for the 1993 model year, they stuck with front-wheel drive. The new LH platform gave us the Chrysler LHS, Concorde, and the New Yorker, plus the Dodge Intrepid and Eagle Vision. Later came Chrysler's 300M. These sleek, aerodynamic sedans introduced the cab forward look, with the cabin pushed forward towards the front wheels. The result was more interior space and better handling. Magazines, they loved them. Car and Driver even named the Intrepid, Concorde, and Vision among America's best cars for 1993 and 1994. Chrysler, they were back on their feet, but another revolution was just around the corner. When Chrysler merged with Daimler-Benz in 1998, everything changed. One man in particular, design chief Tom Gale, saw the opportunity. He convinced leadership that the Mercedes experience with rear-wheel drive luxury cars could help Chrysler rediscover its muscle car roots. That vision became reality in 2003 with the debut of the LX platform, a brand new rear-wheel architecture developed with Mercedes engineers. It was strong, flexible, and could even handle all-wheel drive. From that foundation came a modern Mopar dynasty. The Dodge Charger, a revived American icon. The Chrysler 300, bold and luxurious. And the Dodge Challenger, reborn in 2008 as a true retro muscle car. But before those legends rolled out, the first LX model was something different. A wagon with attitude. In 2004, Dodge revived an old nameplate, the Magnum. But this was no ordinary family hauler. It was low-slung, wide-shouldered, and aggressive. Everything wagons weren't supposed to be. It looked like a muscle car that had stretched itself into a long-roof bruiser. Even before the production car launched, Chrysler made its intentions clear. The concept shown at the Los Angeles Auto Show was called the Magnum SRT-8, powered by a supercharged 5.7-liter HEMI. To everyone's surprise, less than a year later, the real car arrived looking almost identical to the concept, something that almost never happens. The Magnum's design, it wasn't an accident. Dodge's most popular vehicles at the time were the Ram pickup and the Viper supercar, both icons of brute strength. Research showed that customers associated Dodge with words like power, muscle, and individuality. The Magnum's bold stance, flared fenders, low roofline, and massive wheels was meant to carry that image forward. Chrysler, they refused to call it a station wagon. Instead, they dubbed it a sports tourer. something that blended the practicality of an SUV with the aggression of a muscle car. It wasn't huge, about 16.5 feet long and 74 inches wide, but its long wheelbase made room for a surprisingly spacious cargo area. With the rear seats folded, it could swallow over 70 cubic feet of gear. That's 2 cubic meters of pure practicality wrapped in a muscle car body. The base SE and mid-level XTS trims were mild-mannered, using a 4-speed automatic and doing 0 to 60 in roughly 10 seconds. The 3.5-liter version with all-wheel drive cut that to under 9. But the RT was the star, 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds, thanks to its 340-horse HEMI V8 and 5-speed automatic borrowed from the Mercedes. Not bad for a 2-ton wagon. Engineers, well, they proudly noted that only 20% of the LX architecture came from Mercedes. The suspension, transmission, and stability control systems were shared, but the rest was pure Detroit attitude. The mix worked beautifully. Reviewers praised the car's balance, grip, and braking performance, especially considering its size. American car magazines loved the Magnum's look and performance. Car and Driver named it both the best wagon in America and the best muscle car of 2005. Journalists admired its stability system, winter mode traction control, and strong value. But they also pointed out its weak spot. That was the interior. Hard plastics, uneven panel gaps, and a bland dashboard disappointed many. Reviewers even joked that the cabin felt more police fleet than premium muscle. Still, for the price, it was hard to complain. You know, just when people thought Dodge had gone as far as they could, they dropped the Magnum SRT8 in 2006. Under the hood sat a 6.1-liter HEMI V8 pumping out 425 horsepower and 420 foot-pound of torque. It could blast to 60 miles per hour in 5.1 seconds and run the quarter mile in 13.1. It was quite literally a muscle car with a tailgate. Motor Trend tested it against the 469 horsepower Mercedes E55 AMG. The Benz was a second quicker to 60 and through the quarter mile, but the Dodge stopped shorter, cornered better, and pulled higher G-forces on the skid pad. Then Motor Trend, well, they calculated cost per horsepower. The Magnums worked out to about $89 per horse. The Mercedes was a whopping $181 per horse. You know, at first, the Magnum, it looked like a hit. Between 2004 and 2005, Dodge sold nearly 92,000 units. But by 2006, something happened that would seal its fate. The arrival of the new Dodge Charger. The Charger, well, it used the same LX platform and offered the same engines, but with a 4-door sedan body and a legendary name. Buyers flocked to it. In 2006 alone, Dodge sold over 114,000 Chargers. That's nearly triple the Magnum sales. By 2007, Magnum numbers fell again, down to around 40,000. Dodge tried one more time with a refresh in 2008, featuring a new front end and improved interior. But it didn't help. Fewer than 7,000 Magnums sold that year. By March 2008, production stopped completely. You know, it was one of those rare automotive stories where a redesign model lived less than a year before being canceled. You know, there's no single reason. Some blame the Charger for stealing customers. Others say the rise of crossovers and SUVs killed the wagons altogether. And then there's one more personal story. According to Ralph Gilles, head of Chrysler's SRT division, One top executive inside the company hated the Magnum and personally pushed it to the end. Whatever the cause, the decision came during tough times. Alongside the Magnum went the PT Cruiser convertible, the Pacifica crossover, and the two-seat Crossfire sports car. In Europe, it survived a bit longer as the Chrysler 300 Touring, built in Austria and offered with a 218 horsepower Mercedes diesel until 2010. Looking back, the Magnum was probably ahead of its time. It mixed family practicality with raw muscle, years before high-performance SUVs made that formula mainstream. And while it vanished too soon, its DNA lives on. Even Italy borrowed it for the Lancia HEMI between 2011 and 2014. Basically, a rebadged Chrysler 300 with Italian badges. My dad, he loved the white ones. He said at one time it reminded him of our station wagon, which was a 1968 Bel Air. He says, look at that. That looks like my old station wagon. But even now, 20 years later, there's nothing like them. It was powerful, short-lived, and unforgettable. Hey, this is Michael J. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. Hey, check out our next videos right here.